As I chatted with you last time, I promised you that I would give you a flyover of three seemingly unrelated topics. If you listen to my last sharing time, I said that a big factor when working in China is to understand the power of base. Not pride, but it's something far deeper than that. It has to do with the essence of who a country is, who a people group is, who an individual is. And I wanted to bring together three fascinating topics. We must understand the culture and listen and learn before we begin to judge it. The first has to do with Taiwan. Now, I'm sure all of you watching has an opinion on the Taiwan situation. I want to speak specifically, however, to my American friends. Which war did Americans lose the most lives in the history of our country? It wasn't Vietnam, it wasn't Korea, it wasn't World War I or World War II. It was the Civil War. Now, what was the core issue of the Civil War? Was it slavery? Well, certainly that played a part. But I believe most historians would agree the seminal issue, the seminal debate, had more to do with succession from the Union. The South cannot leave. Now, put aside your political biases for a moment. The point is, we were willing to lose many American lives over that debate. To the leadership of China, they would say that when Chiang Kai-shek loaded the boats, and I'm quoting their perspective, with ancient artifacts, precious metals, and money, and fled to the island we now call Taiwan, that he was an outlaw, he was a bandit who had in fact lost their civil war. Make no mistake about it, Beijing intends to have Taiwan back. Now, I'm not being political here. I'm simply saying when you understand the issue of base, you'll better understand Taiwan. Let me give you a second illustration. Three Self patriotic movement. We've made no secret about it. From day one, 1998, we've never sneaked around in China. Many of our clients have faith-based driven purposes. And they work with the organized Christian church, for example. The Chinese designate it as the CCC, China Christian Council, or TSPM, Three Self-Patriotic Movement. Now, three self: self-governing, self-propagating, and self-supporting. Now, interestingly enough, that phrase didn't come out of China. It was first used in the UK as a missiological principle. When churches are formulated, they should be three self to be healthy. They govern themselves, they support themselves, and they do their own evangelism or sharing or whatever the case may be. The same thing is true for the Roman Catholic Church in China. They're three self. Now, I would suggest that much of the tension that comes in the religious community centers around a base issue. China does not want the Western hat on the Chinese church. They want the Chinese church to be Chinese. I had a Communist Party member tell me, he says, gee, We don't want more Christians in China. We want more Chinese Christians in China. Now, that's the whole emphasis currently of Sinicization. And it's not just religion, but it has to do with making sure that there's not a colonizing of the country or an attempt to do so again. And so if you put it in the category of face, I believe it will help you understand better, as it has myself. Taiwan, somewhat a face issue. 3 South, it's a face issue. What's the third one? Toilets. Not so much anymore, but when I first began to travel to China in 1998 and after, there were many squatty potties. Not just in the rural areas where they still exist to some degree, but in the airports, some hotels, restaurants. I remember with a big smile the first time my wife went with some of her lady friends to go to the ladies' room together. They came back giggling as they all stood around a hole in the floor and took turns, enjoying some good camaraderie and no small amount of laughter. Well, that was common. In 2008, when China did a masterful job of hosting the Olympics, they realized that many tourists would come, there'd be much press, and so beginning in the big cities, they began to convert to Western-style commodes. Now, how does that have to do with face? Well, I've come to appreciate, because of, in large part, because of my Asian mentors, that a squatty potty can actually be much cleaner than a commode. If you don't believe that, just think about it next time you go into a truck stop. Give me a hole in the ground anytime. If something can't be cleaned and routinely sanitized. But why did the government in Beijing convert almost overnight, as they reinvented Beijing, to Western toilets? The issue is, primarily, they didn't want the Western community to think that they were backwards, that they were uneducated, or that they didn't have the technology and the plumbing capabilities to have some of the finest, cleanest toilets in the world. Now, are Western commodes superior to squatty potties? Depends on where you are and your perspective. And so I take 3 seemingly unrelated topics, and I've tried to pull them together for you, and hopefully you'll find this helpful. Next time we visit, I'd like to share 1 or 2 other central, important ingredients for functioning well in China. I hope to see you again soon.